January 14, 1945, 01:30 a.m. The outskirts of Zwolle, Overijssel Province, Netherlands. The night air is cold, heavy with fog and smoke drifting low over the frozen ground. Somewhere in the darkness, German machine guns crack sporadically, short nervous bursts fired more from fear than from certainty. The city of Zwolle lies ahead, silent but occupied, its streets controlled by a German garrison determined to slow the Allied advance at any cost. This is not a legend. This is not a rumor passed down by soldiers. This is a documented event of the Second World War. What unfolds in the next hours will be carried out by a single man, wounded, operating without support, acting on instinct, discipline, and an unbreakable refusal to retreat. Before continuing, leave a comment with the name of the city you are watching from. Your participation keeps stories like this alive. Zwolle is a strategic point. If the Canadians fail to secure it, German forces can delay the advance, reorganize defenses, and inflict heavy casualties by forcing a street-by-street assault at daylight. Tanks cannot easily maneuver inside the narrow streets. Artillery risks destroying civilian structures. Infantry would pay the price in blood. To avoid this, the Canadian command orders a reconnaissance in force. 2 men are sent ahead under cover of darkness to probe enemy strength and locate defensive positions. One of them is Corporal Leo Major, a French-Canadian soldier of the Régiment de la Chaudière. He is already a veteran of brutal fighting in Europe. He has lost sight in one eye from a grenade blast months earlier, yet refused discharge. He moves silently, carrying a Lee Enfield rifle, grenades, and a submachine gun captured earlier in the campaign. As Major and his comrade advance toward the city, a sudden burst of German fire erupts from a concealed position. The encounter is chaotic and violent. In seconds, Major's partner is killed. The body collapses into the mud without a sound. Leo Major is alone. At dawn, hours earlier during operations in Europe, he had been briefly captured by German troops in a separate engagement. He did not accept captivity as an outcome. He escaped within hours, rearming himself and returning to combat. Now, once again, withdrawal is an option, but it is not one he considers. He does not return to Canadian lines. Instead, Major moves forward. Zwolle's outer defenses consist of scattered infantry units, roadblocks reinforced with machine guns, and patrols moving unpredictably through the streets. German soldiers expect an attack at first light. What they do not expect is a single combatant operating deep inside their perimeter during the night. Major enters the city. He advances street by street, using the darkness as concealment. He fires short controlled bursts from different positions, then relocates immediately. He throws grenades into enemy posts, waits for shouts and confusion, then disappears before a counterattack can form. He deliberately creates the illusion of a much larger force. German troops begin reporting attacks from multiple directions. Orders are shouted in panic. Runners sprint through alleys. Officers attempt to reorganize units that can no longer determine where the enemy is or how many they face. Vehicles are moved, engines revving, only to be abandoned when gunfire erupts again from another sector. Leo Major captures German soldiers, disarms them, and sends them running back toward Canadian lines with instructions to report that the city is surrounded. Hour by hour, the pressure builds. By nightfall, the German garrison believes a full-scale assault is imminent. They withdraw, abandoning key positions without ever engaging Canadian infantry directly. When Canadian forces enter Zwolle the next morning, they find the city largely intact and the enemy gone. No tanks fired, no artillery barrage, no mass infantry assault. One wounded soldier changed the course of the operation. But this was not the only time Leo Major would refuse evacuation while bleeding, holding ground alone to prevent a line from collapsing. In another engagement, severely wounded, he held a strategic hill under repeated enemy attacks, firing until the advance was stopped. Only then did he accept treatment. War does not create heroes. It reveals what men do when every limit is stripped away. And the night in Zwolle was far from over. January 14, 1945, 02:45 a.m. Inside Zwolle, Overijssel Province, Netherlands. The city is no longer silent. Footsteps echo in the distance, boots scraping against cobblestone streets slick with frost. Doors slam. Orders are shouted in German, sharp and urgent, bouncing between buildings whose windows are blacked out to avoid Allied air detection. Somewhere nearby, a flare rises briefly, bathing the rooftops in pale white light, before fading back into darkness. Leo Major presses his back against a brick wall, breathing slow, controlled. His right eye scans the intersection ahead. His left eye, blinded months earlier, contributes nothing, but he has learned to compensate. Sound, shadow, movement. He listens more than he looks. A German patrol appears at the far end of the street. 4 men, rifles slung low, shoulders tense. They are not advancing confidently. They are searching. Major waits until they pass a narrow alley. He steps out, fires a short burst, then immediately throws a grenade toward a sandbagged position further down the block. The explosion reverberates through the street, shattering windows, triggering alarms of panic. Shouts erupt. The patrol scatters, unsure where the fire came from or how many enemies they face. Major is already gone. He moves quickly, crossing streets diagonally, never staying in one place longer than seconds. Every action is calculated to exaggerate presence. Gunfire from one street, a grenade on the next, then silence. Then another burst from behind the German lines. Inside a commandeered building serving as a local command post, German officers attempt to assemble reports. Maps are spread on a table lit by a single lamp. Conflicting information pours in. Enemy units everywhere, snipers on rooftops, grenades in the rear, attacks from multiple directions. None of it makes sense. No tanks are visible. No artillery barrage precedes the assault, and yet the pressure feels overwhelming. Communications begin to fracture as runners fail to return, intercepted or forced to take cover. Major intercepts one such runner. The German soldier freezes when he realizes a weapon is pointed at his chest. His hands go up immediately. Major disarms him, motions silently. Another soldier emerges from a doorway, startled only to be covered instantly. Major captures them both. He speaks enough German to make himself understood. He tells them the city is surrounded, that Canadian units are already positioned to enter at dawn. That resistance will lead to destruction. Then he sends them away. They run. Every soldier sent back carries the same message, delivered breathlessly, reinforced by the chaos unfolding around them. Fear spreads faster than bullets. Units begin to pull back from exposed positions, abandoning intersections they can no longer defend. At 03:30 a.m., Major engages a machine gun nest near a small square. He approaches from the flank, using parked bicycles and debris for cover. A grenade silences the position. He fires into the air immediately after, simulating covering fire from advancing troops. German soldiers retreat deeper into the city. Major is wounded. Shrapnel tears into his leg during a brief exchange near a barricade. Blood soaks into his trousers, warm against the freezing air. He stumbles, catches himself, presses on. Pain is acknowledged, then ignored. Evacuation is not an option. If he leaves now, the illusion collapses. He keeps moving. By 04:15 a.m., German vehicles begin repositioning. Engines start, then cut off abruptly when gunfire erupts nearby. Some vehicles are abandoned mid-street. Others retreat entirely, pulling back toward the outskirts. Major continues the pattern. Attack, disappear, reappear elsewhere. To the German garrison, it feels like the city itself is hostile. By early morning, command cohesion breaks down. Officers cannot determine enemy strength or direction. Defensive lines no longer exist, only isolated pockets reacting blindly. As the first hint of dawn approaches, the decision is made. Withdraw. German forces evacuate Zwolle under cover of darkness, leaving behind weapons, supplies, and defensive positions. They choose survival over annihilation by a force they believe vastly outnumbers them. When Canadian units advance later that morning, they find streets empty. No resistance, no ambush. Civilians emerge cautiously from cellars and doorways, stunned to discover liberation without destruction. They ask the same question again and again. Where is the army that freed the city? The answer is difficult to believe. And Zwolle was not the only time Leo Major would stand alone, while entire formations depended on his refusal to yield ground. April 9, 1945, 07:20 a.m., near the Scheldt Estuary, Zeeland Province, Netherlands. The terrain here is flat and exposed, cut by dikes, flooded fields, and narrow causeways that funnel movement into predictable lanes of fire. The sky hangs low and gray, the kind of morning where sound carries farther than it should. Every footstep feels audible to the enemy. German forces still control key high ground overlooking the approaches. From these positions, Machine guns and mortars dominate the landscape. If the Canadians fail to neutralize this hill, any advance will be shredded before it begins. Leo Major is part of the assault element. The orders are clear: advance, seize the position, and hold it long enough for reinforcements to arrive. The problem is visibility. The Germans can see everything. There is no concealment, no armor support close enough to assist. Infantry must move forward under fire. The first attack is repelled. Mortar rounds crash into the mud, spraying water and debris. Men drop, wounded or dead, screaming for medics who cannot reach them. The line wavers. If it breaks, the entire advance collapses. Major pushes forward anyway. He reaches the base of the hill and begins climbing under fire, using shell craters and fallen bodies as cover. A machine gun opens up, pinning him down. He throws a grenade, silencing it, then moves again without waiting to confirm the kill. At the crest, he encounters a German defensive position reinforced with sandbags and interlocking fields of fire. He attacks immediately, firing and throwing grenades in rapid succession, forcing the defenders to pull back. Then, the counterattacks begin. German infantry surge forward in waves, supported by small arms and mortar fire. Major is hit again. Blood runs down his arm, his leg barely supporting his weight. A medic reaches him, shouting that he must be evacuated. Major refuses. He positions himself behind the captured emplacement and opens fire. Every time German troops attempt to advance, he meets them with controlled bursts, shifting positions to avoid being targeted. He uses captured weapons when his ammunition runs low. Minutes stretch into hours. Each attack is repelled, but the cost is mounting. Pain threatens to overwhelm him. He bites down, steadies his breathing, and continues firing. The hill must hold. If it falls, the Canadians behind him will be cut apart in the open. German officers assume the position is held by a full platoon. They adjust tactics accordingly, wasting time and manpower against a defense that consists of a single wounded man and scattered supporting fire from distant units. By 10:01 a.m., Canadian reinforcements finally arrive. They find Major still firing, still refusing to leave his position until the threat is fully neutralized. Only then does he allow himself to be evacuated. The hill holds. The line does not break. Later reports confirm that the delay caused by the resistance prevented a German counteroffensive that could have rolled back the entire sector. This is the pattern of Leo Major's war. Not recklessness, not bravado. A calculated refusal to retreat when retreat would cost others their lives. His actions do not end with medals or speeches. They end in after-action reports, casualty lists that are shorter than they would have been, cities spared destruction, advances that continue instead of collapsing. And yet, even as the war draws closer to its end, danger remains everywhere. Victory is never guaranteed. Exhaustion dulls reflexes. One mistake can erase everything. For Leo Major, the war is not finished. Not yet. April 10, 1945, 02:10 a.m. Rural outskirts near the German-Dutch border, Lower Saxony, Germany. The front has shifted eastward. What was once occupied territory is now a collapsing defensive line. German units are fragmented, undersupplied, and operating on desperation rather than coordination. The countryside is scarred by shell craters and burned-out farmhouses. The earth churned into thick mud by weeks of artillery fire and vehicle movement. Night operations are constant. Leo Major is back on patrol duty despite his injuries not fully healed. Bandages are stiff with dried blood. Pain flares with every step, but it no longer surprises him. The mission is reconnaissance once again. Identify enemy movement, probe weak points, prevent a counterattack before dawn. The patrol advances cautiously along a tree line bordering open fields. Visibility is limited. The moon is partially obscured by clouds drifting low and fast. Somewhere ahead, engines idle briefly, then fall silent. German forces are repositioning. Major moves forward alone, separating from the patrol to gain a better angle. He crawls through wet grass, inch by inch, until he reaches a shallow depression overlooking a road. Below him, several German soldiers gather near a vehicle, discussing something urgently. He observes, counts, waits, then he strikes. A grenade arcs down, exploding near the vehicle. Shouts erupt. Major opens fire immediately, aiming at movement rather than silhouettes. He fires, shifts position, fires again. The Germans scatter, some retreating into the trees, others freezing in shock. Within minutes, It is over. Major captures several soldiers. He disarms them calmly, methodically, as if this were routine. He sends them back toward Canadian lines, once again spreading the impression that resistance is futile. But the night is not finished. At 03:00 a.m., German artillery begins firing blindly into suspected Canadian positions. Shells land wide, shaking the ground but causing little damage. It is harassment fire, meant to slow movement and exhaust defenders. Major moves through it anyway. He navigates between impacts, adjusting his route instinctively. A shell lands close. Dirt and shrapnel tear into his back, knocking him down. For a moment, he cannot breathe. The world narrows to pain and ringing silence. He gets up. By 04:30 a.m., Canadian units report no significant German buildup in the sector. The threat of a coordinated counterattack has passed. The front holds. As dawn approaches, Major returns to friendly lines. His uniform is torn. His body is bruised and bleeding. He reports what he has seen, then sits down quietly, saying nothing more. There is no celebration. There rarely is. The war is grinding to its conclusion, but the cost continues to be paid in individual moments like these, small, brutal encounters that never make headlines, yet determine whether thousands live or die. Leo Major does not speak of what he has done. He does not seek recognition. For him, the mission ends when the danger is gone, but the consequences of his actions echo beyond the battlefield. Cities spared, lines held, men alive who would otherwise have been lost. The war will end soon. Germany's defeat is inevitable. Yet inevitability means nothing to the men still fighting in the dark, still making decisions that matter only for the next minute, the next hour. For Leo Major, one final truth remains clear. Survival is earned, not promised, and the night is never truly safe. May 5, 1945, 06 a.m. Wageningen, Gelderland, Netherlands. The war in Europe is reaching its final hours. The countryside around Wageningen is tense, suspended between silence and surrender. German units are retreating or waiting for orders that may never come. Allied forces advance carefully, aware that the most dangerous moment often comes when a defeated enemy has nothing left to lose. This morning is different. Delegations move cautiously toward a small hotel where negotiations are set to formalize the German surrender in the Netherlands. Armed escorts maintain distance. No one trusts the calm. Leo Major is nearby. Despite everything, wounds, exhaustion, months of relentless combat, he is still operating at the front. When reports arrive that a group of German soldiers may attempt to disrupt the surrender process, a patrol is dispatched to investigate. Major volunteers. As the patrol advances through a wooded area, gunfire erupts without warning. A German unit, refusing to accept the end of the war, opens fire from concealed positions. The engagement is sudden and violent. Major reacts instantly. He moves forward aggressively, firing and maneuvering, forcing the Germans to reveal their positions. He throws grenades with precision, collapsing resistance before it can spread. The firefight is brief, but decisive. The threat is neutralized. The surrender proceeds. Hours later, the guns fall silent across the Netherlands. For the first time in years, there is no distant artillery, no small arms fire echoing across fields and towns. The war is over. Civilians emerge cautiously, then with growing confidence. Flags appear in windows. Church bells ring, hesitant at first, then with certainty. Cities that survived occupation now face the difficult task of rebuilding lives, interrupted by violence. Leo Major does not join the celebration. He sits alone, cleaning his weapon out of habit more than necessity. The silence feels unnatural. The tension that carried him through nights like Zwolle, through wounded stands on exposed hills, through patrols in hostile territory, does not disappear simply because the fighting has stopped. He has done what was required. Nothing more, nothing less. In the years that follow, his actions are documented, confirmed by witnesses, recorded in military history. The liberation of Zwolle without destruction, the holding of key ground under impossible conditions, the pattern of refusing evacuation until others were safe. These are facts, but facts do not capture what it meant to be there, to move alone through occupied streets, knowing that discovery meant death, to hold a position while bleeding, knowing that retreat would doom others, to continue fighting when the body demands rest. War is not made of grand speeches or clean victories. It is made of moments, moments where a single decision alters the fate of many. Leo Major was not invincible. He was wounded. He was afraid. He was human. What separated him from others was not the absence of fear, but the refusal to let fear decide. When dawn came after that night in Zvola, a city stood intact because one man chose to advance instead of withdraw. When the line held under fire, dozens survived because one wounded soldier stayed. History often moves quietly, carried forward by individuals who never asked to be remembered. This is one of those stories. Not a myth, not an exaggeration. A documented moment in the Second World War, where determination, skill, and an unyielding will changed the outcome of real events, in real places, at real times. And that is why it matters. Because even in the darkest hours of war, a single human choice can echo far beyond the battlefield.